I am.
3 letters, 12 syllables, and genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs, are a heated, passionate debate amongst our population today. But as our classmates have said before, I assert the proposition today that consumers' uninformed fears are hurting beneficial research and the usage of GMOs globally. This is going to be happening through 3 secondary claims. First, that negative social perception hinders long-term development and usage and adoption of GMOs. Second, that there are available GMOs that are safe and beneficial for consumption. And third, that GMOs present a way to prevent global food shortage. I'll define genetic modification as altering the genetic trait of a living organism by using recombinant DNA technology to transfer one or more genes from one organism to another by passing biological species. This is important to note because this is also known as genetic engineering in the field, because genetically modified organisms can also be naturally occurring. So for today's purpose, I will be only talking about the ones that are only able to be achieved through genetic engineering. So first, my secondary claim is that negative social perception hinders long-term development and adoption of GMOs. This is because GMOs start and end with us, the consumer. Although you may not know it, GMOs are heavily influenced by where we spend our money. And if we choose not to buy them, that influences where they will end up. And this is backed by the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries in Japan. In 2002, they stated that commercial use of our DNA crops cannot proceed smoothly without understanding and acceptance from consumers. This is still true 10 years later and must be taken into consideration as we influence this technology for the future. GMOs have a great potential for solving nutritional problems, and I will touch on that later in my second claim. But when we only choose to have negative influence with GMOs and we choose not to support them, and even the good research and to not support that, this leaves GMOs to only privatized institutions. That means that studies done only focus on money and profit and do not value evidence that is good for the population. George M. Mofa wrote in a Ghana medical journal in 2014 that most of the trials supporting introduction of GMOs are not independently done and are commercially driven. Therefore, I believe that if we support them, we will get more publicly funded studies that promote the welfare of our population and the consumers alike. My second claim are that there are available GMOs that are safe and beneficial to eat. Many people are against GMOs, but I believe that the negative cases of GMOs, that the testing that they've done are unfounded. And this is backed by Lucia Martinelli, who wrote in a Croatian medical journal in 2013 that on the whole, peer-reviewed studies on GM food safety do not note significant health risks, with a few exceptions like the most renowned Pudzai affair and the recent Seralini case. This, to end the quote, this is where a lot of the opposition comes from. They cherry-pick these cases, and let me refute that she later goes on to say, these latter studies have been disregarded by the scientific community based on incorrect experimental design and statistical analysis. Let us be informed consumers, that even the opposition may have points that are true. Whether you agree with me or not, we must be certain that where we are getting our information is valid. And I go on to say that genetically engineered crops pose nutritional advantage over non-genetically engineered crops. One of the expected outcomes deemed by the Ghana Public Health Association in 2014 is improving the nutritional properties of crops to enhance human health through food fortification with desired vitamins and minerals. This is important to developing countries who have populations that do not receive their full nutritional needs from just their current food sources. But with genetically engineered foods, you can provide foods already in these countries, but that have the nutritional needs provided with them. Lastly, GMOs present a way to solve global food shortage. We live in an expansive world, exponentially increasing with populations rising just drastically. And to show that, Hüseyin Babar in Turkish Journal of Agriculture and Forestry says that at present, herbicide-tolerant crops and insect-resistant crops now grown in the United States, Canada, and other countries are those bred to realize a more effective weed and insect control. This shows that we have the means to meet the problems given in our global world. But to exemplify how big of a problem we have with our upcoming food shortage, Hüseyin Babar, this was the correct quote. He says, reduced yield due to biotic stresses and increasing food demand put international food security at risk as 70% more food will be required in 2050. That means that in a short 30 years, we're gonna need 70% more food than we do now. And this is due to biotic stresses. The GMOs, as I stated, are herbicide tolerant and insect resistant. That does not mean that you're eating corn poison or plants that are producing their own insecticides that are harmful to humans. Instead, what they do is they resist the insects and the things that eat them. So this presents us with a key way to solve our own food shortage. Therefore, through negative social perception, we have hindered our own development and adoption of the GMOs. But I've shown that GMOs are safe and beneficial to eat, that they are possible, and that they present a key solution to one of our biggest problems. And therefore, that consumers' uninformed fears are hurting our future. Therefore, I say, don't default to GMO, be informed about GMO. Thank you.
All right, Jack, the proposition still has multiple claims in it, and a couple of the secondary points also have multiple claims. That's something that ought to be cleaned up a little bit, but there was a clear preview, easy to follow. The simple definition at the beginning is fine. The explanation on the first point, I thought you did a pretty good job on. I do think we need to understand what is holding consumers back, what kinds of things are going on. That's where there's some controversy, and I think because you're working on those other issues, that doesn't get it developed quite as much as it needs to be. The second point I thought was pretty good. There's some criticism of the research examples that were used on the other side. The nutritional advantages, vitamin, minerals, all that kind of stuff. It's a little interesting to me that so much of your data comes from sources that are outside of the English language and the United States. I mean, I heard Japan, Guyana, Romania. Where else did we hear? It was like we were traveling around the world to get opinions about GMOs, which I think is not a bad thing, but some of them are specific to U.S. situations, and it might be helpful to have some data more specific there. You had the one statistical piece of information in the projection to the future, a lot of expert testimony in the speech. I thought that was pretty good. It's delivered very effectively. All right, thank you.